An old man walked to the bar for his usual six-pack. He left with bloodied hands and shattered bread after a biker shoved him to the ground. But 30 minutes later, a chopper shook the streets, and the town would never be the same. Who called for backup? And what made this veteran's life so legendary? Why did the town finally stand up when it mattered most? Stick around, you're not going to want to miss how this ends. But first, comment below where you're tuning in from. And if jaw-dropping moments like this are your thing, hit that like button and make sure you're subscribed. The paper bag in Hank Connor's hand was still warm, the scent of butter and cinnamon drifting through the crisp Montana air. Early fall had painted Red Hawk in amber light, and as the sun dipped toward the mountains, it cast long shadows over the cracked sidewalks and brick storefronts of Main Street. Hank moved slow but steady, nodding to the shopkeepers who recognized him, not by his name, but by the worn 1st Cavalry patch stitched to his bomber jacket. He stopped outside the Rusty Spur Saloon, the old neon sign humming faintly above the door. Fridays were for small comforts. A six-pack, a quiet dinner, maybe a weathered Western rerun before bed. But something was wrong tonight. The Iron Rains had arrived. Their motorcycles snarled along the curb, all chrome teeth and scorched rubber. Engines ticked and cooled. Laughter, loud and careless, spilled from inside the bar. Hank didn't flinch. He stepped forward, careful between the bikes. A soft scrape. His bakery bag brushed a handlebar. A bottle shifted, clinked, and hit the pavement with a dull roll. A boot landed behind him. "Watch it, Grandpa." "It's Rex," the gang leader. The voice was sharp, amused, laced with something meaner than alcohol. Hank turned. The biker stood in the doorway, grinning wide, flanked by shadows. "No apology?" Rex sneered. Hank said nothing. He dealt with louder men in darker places. But Rex wasn't interested in words. The shove came fast and hard. Hank's back hit the concrete, the bag bursting beside him. Bread tore, cans bounced. The silence that followed was worse than the impact. People stared, from across the street, from inside the bar, through car windows. But no one moved. Not one hand reached out. Only the old man, blinking up at the sky, lips pressed thin, still, waiting. Hank didn't groan, didn't speak. He simply sat there on the pavement, one hand bracing his knee, the other hanging limp with scrapes blooming red across his knuckles. The torn bakery bag lay beside him like something mourned, a shattered offering to silence. Across the street, inside the Rusty Spur, the mood had soured. The laughter had grown quieter, more guarded. Locals sipped beers without looking at one another. At the end of the bar, a young barback named Kyle, barely 20 and barely brave, stared at the scene through the window. "That your vet?" someone asked from behind the bar. Kyle didn't answer. His thumbs moved fast under the counter. He wasn't texting a friend. He was texting his older brother. Hank just got shoved bad, right outside Spur. The message flew. The brother, Corporal Darren Vicks, stationed at Fort Whistler, glanced down at his phone mid-conversation. His gut clenched. Meanwhile, just 10 miles away, at the Fort Whistler Rec Hall, laughter echoed around a green felt pool table. Off-duty soldiers in t-shirts and boots leaned on cues, sipping beer and arguing over bets. Emily Blaze Connor lined up a shot, steady hands and steady eyes. Her phone buzzed once, then again. The screen lit with a name she hadn't seen in months, Darren V. She opened the message. Froze. "It's your grandfather. Some biker laid him out, outside the Spur. Bad." The pool cue dropped from her hand. It hit the table edge, clattered to the floor. "Connor?" one soldier asked. But Emily was already moving. Her voice was low and clipped. "Get my bird ready. Now." "Blaze, wait," her commander called from the end of the hall, half rising from a folding chair. She spun mid-stride, tugging a chain from beneath her shirt. A silver dog tag, etched with a 7-digit clearance code, glinted under the overhead lights. Family Protocol, Section 12C. Emergency Mobilization. Signed and cleared. The commander's mouth flattened. No more questions. Minutes later, inside the armory, Rodrigo Vega, her co-pilot, tossed on his vest and snapped a helmet under his arm. "You sure about this?" he asked, already knowing the answer. Emily pulled her gloves tight. "No one touches my grandfather." Rodrigo grinned. This town about to get a free air show. Back in Red Hawk, the moment had passed, but the weight lingered. Hank remained seated on the curb, his scraped knuckles now tucked in his lap. He didn't ask for help, didn't expect any. The townsfolk drifted by, all seeing, none speaking. The saloon door swung again. Laughter returned, crueler than before. Rex swaggered in with 2 gang members flanking him. He slapped the back of a chair, tossed himself into it, and grabbed someone's beer off the table without asking. "Guy looked like he might turn to dust," he said, grinning. "You push him hard?" one of the others asked. "Didn't need to," Rex said. "Old dog folded like wet paper. Teach him not to scuff my ride." A few nervous chuckles, but no one really smiled. Outside, tires crackled against gravel. A beige SUV pulled up. Mayor Howard Briggs, Red Hawk's elected official, stepped out. He saw Hank. He saw the blood. He saw the silent crowd doing nothing. "Jesus," he muttered, striding over. "Hank, you all right?" Hank didn't look up. "Fine enough." "You sure? Someone said it was the bikers, Rex?" "Didn't catch a name," Hank said, slow and quiet. Mayor Briggs looked around. People averted their eyes. He clenched his jaw. I'll look into it." But even he hesitated before stepping through the doors of the Rusty Spur. The last thing Fort Whistler expected that evening was thunder without a storm. The hangar doors groaned open, and within moments the first Black Hawk's rotor blades stirred the dust like a sleeping beast roused too early. Crewmen turned to look. Emily climbed the side step with purpose, helmet under one arm, her boots thudding with each stride. Her face was stone, but her eyes burned behind the visor. Calm on the surface, war underneath. Rodrigo already had the comms up, headset locked in. He glanced over. "ETA?" Emily didn't even sit before answering. 12 minutes if we fly low," he smirked. "Thought you'd say that." The Black Hawk rumbled to life, its blades cutting sharper with every rotation. As they lifted, the ground seemed to vanish beneath them. Emily's grip on the control stick was tight, precise. She didn't blink. Back in Red Hawk, the quiet was breaking. A low, mechanical thrum crept over the mountains. At first, the townsfolk mistook it for distant thunder. But then the windows began to shake. Car alarms chirped, dogs barked, and shop signs trembled against the bolts in their frames. Out front of the Rusty Spur, Hank remained on the curb. He didn't lift his head at the noise. He only closed his eyes and let the wind rush over him. Someone shouted, "Is that?" But no one could finish before the Black Hawk swept over the edge of the rooftops, skimming just above the power lines. The rotors roared like vengeance. It made the saloon's neon flicker. Glasses rattled inside. Someone dropped a pool cue. Emily brought the helicopter down in the center of Main Street. Doors still swinging, dust curling around the landing gear. The engines didn't shut off. The side hatch hissed open, and Emily stepped down. Full flight suit, gloves tight, visor reflecting the saloon. The townspeople stared, not just at the Black Hawk, but at her. They didn't see the girl who once played in the grass behind the schoolhouse. They saw a soldier, a warbird walking on 2 feet. She didn't speak. She walked straight past the crowd, through the dust and toward the curb, where Hank still sat, motionless. His head turned slowly. She knelt beside him. "Hey, Gramps," he blinked. His voice rasped. "You always had good timing." She smiled just for a moment, not letting this one slide. Behind her, the crowd had grown. Phones were out, mouths hung open. Inside the saloon, the gang had gone still. Rex stood near the window, peering through the streaked glass. His grin had vanished. Emily stood again, facing the building. The doors were still ajar. Her eyes locked onto his. Rex froze. Emily didn't move, didn't blink. But the message was loud enough to make the room feel suddenly, violently colder. This wasn't over. It was just beginning. The saloon doors creaked open under the weight of rotor-washed silence. Dust still hung in the air like smoke after a strike. Emily stepped inside alone. Her helmet hung from one hand, her flight suit bearing the grit of the landing. Every eye turned toward her. Drinks frozen mid-air, darts stopped mid-flight, conversations clipped clean. The jukebox glitched, stuttering to silence, as if even it understood the gravity that had just walked in. At the far end of the bar, Rex leaned against the pool table, arms folded. His smirk was already faltering. Emily didn't speak at first. She simply looked at him, unblinking, unflinching, as if she were watching a target through the glass of a cockpit at 300 feet. Then quietly, with enough weight to flatten the room, she said, "You put your hands on a veteran. You put your hands on my family." The room inhaled but didn't exhale. One of Rex's guys let out a brittle, awkward laugh. It died fast. Rex straightened, puffing up his chest. "What are you gonna do?" he said, voice oily with arrogance. "Arrest me?" Emily took 2 steps forward. calm, controlled. "No," she said, "just remind you what respect looks like." From her side pocket, she pulled out a blood-stained cloth and slowly unfolded it onto the bar. Hank's jacket, torn at the sleeve, dust still clinging to its military patch. The laughter didn't return. No one even shifted in their seats. Emily turned, pointing to a spot on the wooden wall just above the bar mirror. There hung a small brass plaque, half forgotten, dusty and unassuming. The words read, "In honor of local veterans who served with distinction." At the top of the list, Connor H., SGT Maj, 1st Cavalry. The bartender swallowed hard. A hush fell so thick, even the flickering neon seemed afraid to buzz. Just then, the saloon doors opened again. Rodrigo stepped in, flanked by 2 more soldiers, straight from the Black Hawk. Their boots hit the floor like punctuation marks. They didn't speak. They just stood at attention behind Emily, their expressions unreadable under dark-tinted goggles. Rex stiffened. He pushed away from the table and walked toward her, slow and deliberate, his bravado desperate to hang on. "You think I'm scared of you?" he growled. Emily didn't move. When he got within arm's reach face to face, she leaned in just slightly, close enough for her words to be for him alone. "Make a move," she whispered. "I dare you." Rex's jaw twitched, but he didn't lift a finger. He didn't need to lose a fight to know it was already lost. Behind her, Rodrigo walked forward and dropped a heavy duffel bag on the floor. The metallic thump echoed like a gunshot. He unzipped it and flipped it open. A polished wooden frame inside holding rows of Hank's military medals. Bronze Star, Purple Heart, Air Medal, Army Commendation, and more. Someone gasped. Even the iron reins flinched. From a far booth, a man in denim and grease-streaked flannel stood up. He was nobody important, just a mechanic named Bill who once had his car fixed by Hank for free. His voice cracked as he shouted, "You don't touch Hank Connor. Not in this town." Another voice followed, then another. "Man fixed my roof after the storm. Helped bury my brother. Drove the hearse himself. He's a hero." One by one the bar stood up. Old men with ball caps. Young ones with dirt under their nails. Women who remembered Hank carrying groceries for them when they were still in strollers. The town rose. Rex looked around, face draining color. His grip on control, so smug moments ago, was slipping through his fingers like sand. Emily said nothing more. She didn't have to. The town was speaking now. The silence inside the rusty spur was broken not by words but by the sound of boots retreating. Rex turned, jaw clenched, and pushed open the saloon doors. Outside, the rest of the Iron Reins were already straddling their bikes, heads low, avoiding eye contact with the growing crowd. Rex swung onto his Harley without a word. Engines roared to life, but the sound no longer held swagger. It sounded like retreat. They rolled out of town 2 by 2, vanishing down Main Street to the jeers and stares of a town no longer afraid. Back inside, Emily exhaled slowly, her fists finally unclenching. She turned and walked back to where Hank was still sitting, though he tried to get up on his own. His knuckles were bloodied, his pride scraped raw, but his posture remained tall. She knelt beside him and helped him up, one arm around his shoulder. "You didn't have to do all that," he muttered, eyes still forward. Emily smiled. "You would have done worse for me." He didn't argue. The saloon doors opened once more, this time to reveal Mayor Briggs, cap in hand, face red with guilt. He stepped forward and faced Hank directly. "We failed you today," he said quietly. "That won't happen again." Hank nodded, nothing more. Emily walked with him down the sidewalk, past storefronts and silent witnesses. The Black Hawk still waited in the distance, dust swirling gently beneath it. Rodrigo, standing with one hand on the side hatch, offered a cheeky salute. "Best VIP escort I've done all month." Outside the saloon, a group of teenagers had gathered. They stepped toward Hank shyly. "Sir, is it true you flew into Vietnam with no door on the chopper?" one asked. Hank chuckled, the first real laugh of the day. "Only once," he said. "Didn't plan to make a habit of it." Inside the saloon, someone nailed a new sign beneath the veteran's plaque. "You lay a hand on one, you answer to all." Plans were already forming for a permanent military liaison office in Red Hawk. Later, on the porch, Emily sat beside her grandfather as the sky burned orange. "Next time," she said, "just call me before you go near any biker bars." Hank snorted. "Deal." Rex didn't say a word. No apology, no snarl, just a clenched jaw and a silent retreat. He turned and strode toward the saloon doors, shoulders rigid, eyes burning with something between rage and disbelief. The other members of the Iron Reins hesitated, then followed, heads low, boots thudding across the wooden floor in rhythm with their shame. Outside, the motorcycles revved reluctantly to life. A few of the townsfolk had gathered along the sidewalk now, no longer silent, no longer afraid. "Don't let the door hit you," someone barked. "Maybe try a town without a backbone next time," another added. Rex didn't flinch. But as the bikes rolled out onto Main Street, the crowd's jeers chased them all the way to the edge of Red Hawk. One by one, they disappeared down the long stretch of highway, nothing but dust in their wake. Inside the saloon, the mood shifted from tension to a cautious relief. The crowd turned to Emily, but she was already gone. Out on the curb, she knelt beside Hank again. "Let me help you up," Hank grunted as he braced against her arm. "You didn't have to do all that." Emily smiled faintly. "You would have done worse for me." He gave a dry chuckle. "You're damn right." Just then, Mayor Briggs approached, hat in hand, expression contrite. "Sergeant Connor," he said, voice low. "We failed you today, all of us. That won't happen again." Hank didn't respond right away. He just met the mayor's eyes, then nodded once. "I believe you mean that." Emily walked him slowly down the sidewalk, her steps matched to his limp. In the distance, the Black Hawk still sat, blades at rest, lights blinking in the dusk. Rodrigo leaned against the side of the chopper, arms crossed. As the pair neared, he gave Hank a mock salute. "Best VIP escort I've done all month." Hank smirked. "Bet your usual ones don't come with jeering crowds." "Not unless they deserve it," Rodrigo replied. Later, on the porch of Hank's small home, Emily and her grandfather sat in silence, watching the sun sink behind the hills. The town was calm again. "Whole again." Emily broke the quiet first. "Next time, just call me before you go near any biker bars," Hank chuckled. "Deal." The next morning, Red Hawk woke to a surprising headline and a surprising visitor. A military liaison, uniform crisp and smile warm, arrived at Town Hall. Fort Whistler was assigning a permanent contact to Red Hawk for veteran protection and community coordination. Not as a favor, as a statement. What happened to Hank Connor would never happen again. By dawn, Red Hawk wasn't just a town, it was a headline. Footage from phones had spread like wildfire overnight. The chopper landing, the confrontation. The moment Emily stepped through the doors of the rusty spur like a storm given legs. By noon, every local and national outlet had a name for it. The Red Hawk response. News anchors couldn't get enough. "Granddaughter defends veteran grandfather with military precision," one caption read. Another simply called it a town that remembered its backbone. Emily didn't ask for any of it. She stayed quiet as the clips rolled, kept her responses short when reporters emailed the base. But even with the spotlight burning hot, something unexpected began to grow. Veterans groups across Montana, then beyond, began organizing support chapters. Not protests, not demands, just networks. Action. Protection. Inspired by Red Hawk. Inspired by Hank. Inspired by the woman now known online as the Granddaughter Guardian. Emily hated the name. Rodrigo, of course, loved it. "Could be worse," he joked. "They could have gone with Hellbird Barbie." Hank, for once, let himself laugh. In the weeks that followed, the town shifted. Faces that used to look down now looked up. Teenagers knocked on Hank's door not to gawk, but to ask questions. How do you stay calm when people treat you like nothing? What does real strength look like? And so, Hank did what he'd always done, quietly, without applause. He sat with them, talked to them, taught them how to sand wood, change a tire, show up on time, stand tall, resilience, respect, service. He didn't mention the medals. He never spoke about that day. But on the wall of the youth center, a new mural went up. It showed a girl stepping off a helicopter, reaching down to help an old man rise. Above them in bold letters, "We don't forget who built this town." And beneath that, smaller, the Red Hawk response.